I, Neeti,
on behalf of our dais, extend a warm welcome to Mrs. Nandini. I would like to call upon Aanchal and Jaspreet to felicitate Mrs. Nandini. Can we have a big round of applause for them, please? Thank you, Aanchal and Jaspreet. Mrs. Nandini has been enrolled with the Bar Council of India for the last 22 years and is registered as an advocate on the record with the Supreme Court of India. She is also a certified mediator from the Supreme Court of India. She holds a postgraduate degree from Delhi University and a specialized diploma in labor and industrial laws. She is a senior partner with Karanjwala and Company, one of the most reputed law firm in India. She handles all aspects of litigation in the highest court, that is the Supreme Court of India. Her key responsibilities in the firm are multifaceted. She is responsible for taking opinions from the topmost senior counsels of the country on behalf of major corporate houses and has a vast experience of Supreme Court rules and procedures.
her expertise involves handling matters on electricity laws, environmental issues, vehicular pollution for major manufacturers of vehicles in the country, matters relating to mines and mineral concession rules for the largest steel and iron ore manufacturing company in India, and matters relating to Competition Commission for one of the major clients of the company, Tata Power. She handles all the aspects of litigation, including getting preferential licenses and mining licenses for extraction of iron ore, getting clearances from MOEF, and safeguarding the interest of mining companies at large. Besides this, she is also handling trademark matters for some of the reputed Indian and international brands, public sector undertaking like banks including Kotak Mahindra, HDFC and other financial institutions. Ms. Nandini Gore would be addressing all the students of our dais on evolution of legal rights of women in India.
I would now like to call upon Mrs. Nandini. Can we have a big round of applause for her?
Thank you very much, and I'm really delighted to deliver a lecture on women's right in your college, and I am specifically delighted to see so many boys specifically knowing that what is the topic of today's lecture. That is really very good. Let us consider some illustrations that affect all of us in our daily life, be it a man or a woman. Your domestic help comes to you, beaten up black and blue, visibly bruised, crying and asking you for the help because she faces domestic abuse. What would you do? A solution to this exists under the Indian Penal Code, Section 498A. Your neighbor tells you that she has been harassed for bringing less dowry. A solution to this can be found under the Indian Penal Code, Section 304B. You are walking down the street and you come across a group of boys passing remarks at you or at your friend. A solution can be found under Section 354 of the Indian Penal Code. In your community or even in your family, you realize that female feticide is being regularly committed. A solution to this is available under the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Technique Act 1994. You come across a doctor in your locality whom you know very well, who is actively approaching expecting mothers and offering his services for abortion of a girl child. There is a clear solution again under the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act 1994, and you can also report about this heinous crime in the police station. At your workstation or in your classroom, you find that some colleague or your fellow student is sexually harassed on a regular basis. There is a solution under section 354 of the Indian Penal Code. You see that your driver or your mali is refusing to send his girl child to school, while at the same time making all efforts to send his son to school. What you would do? A solution is again available under Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Awareness flows from education, and only with education we can bring change in the society. Legal education particularly is useful to understand our basic legal rights. The point I am trying to make by stating and by giving this lecture and by giving these illustrations is to show that the concept of women right and issues relating to these are relevant in today's scenario, and with the collective efforts by all of us who come from educated background can make a major change in the society. The crucial question today is, what do we do when this occurs around us? Do we act powerless, or do we try to tackle these issues head on? So if you have a basic knowledge, you can always fight against this. In India, women took part in freedom struggle and they fought shoulder to shoulder with men. Recognizing their role in the freedom struggle, at one stage Pandit Nehru, our first Prime Minister, said, "Most of us men folk were in prison, and then a remarkable thing happened. Our women came to the front and took charge of the struggle. Such is the strength of women, and all that is needed to give them the opportunities and option for realizing their potential. The principle of gender equality and protecting the right and privilege of women and children are enshrined in the Constitution of India. Article 14 of the Constitution gives you the basic right to live equally without any discrimination, no caste, no creed, no discrimination, no sex. Everybody is equal under the Constitution of India. There are new legislations and amendment to the existing laws so as to remove any gender bias. That is why I say that the change is how to shift society of men to society of gender equality and gender empowerment. If a woman is healthy and educated, their families will flourish. If a woman is free from violence, their families will flourish. If women have a chance to work and earn as equal partner in society, their families will flourish, and when families flourish, communities and nation also flourish. Women are the primary caretakers for most of the world's children and elderly. Yet much of work they do is not valued, not by economics, not by historians, not by popular culture, not by government leaders. Women are prevented to go to school by their own fathers and brothers. They are being forced into prostitution and are killed as honor killing for those who go against the wishes of their father and their brother. Women are barred in some countries for even using the ballot boxes. You people are very, very lucky who are part of independent India, and all children from educated families, not children, you are all adult, I believe, where your parents are giving you equal opportunities for education along with your brothers. The aim of my speech is to enlighten you about your rights as women, to strengthen your families and societies by empowering yourself to take greater control over your own destinies, which cannot be achieved unless you know about your legal rights. In India, women play an important role in agricultural operations. 60% of the farm work is done by women, thus contributing in a big way to food production and economic growth of our country. As long as girls and women are valued less, fed less, overworked, underpaid, and subject to violence in and out of their homes, the potential of human family to create a peaceful, prosperous world will not be realized ever. In today's world, women are not safe. They are still raped not only by outsiders but their own husbands. You will be surprised to know that law punishes not only a rapist who's an outsider but also a husband who without his wife's consent indulges in sexual activities in West. In our country, this right is still not available. Every woman has a right to protect the dignity of her body and soul. The survey reveals that women are malnourished and discriminated in their own families on day-to-day basis, which are never ever reported. Education empowers participation in the growth process. The focus is now on improving women's participation in higher education, technical educational, vocational courses. Latest survey says that in India, the literacy rate is only 50% for women. Empowering women is the most effective tool for development as well as for poverty reduction. Women who are educated and have been given a chance have proved that they excel in their professional careers. Educated and enlightened women can take care of their families better, make societies compassionate, and make national progressive. An agenda for empowerment of women should cover gender needs, which are basically protection of the womb by stopping female feticide, preventing female infanticides by giving better nutrition and care to girl child, addressing gender preferences in families, giving equal education opportunities for the girl child by sensitizing the society to look at a girl child as a boon, making women economically independent by imparting skills to them, making workplace safe for women by having fast-track courts, implementation of strengthened laws against sexual harassment, addressing issues like dowry and domestic violence in school and in colleges on regular basis, making women feel secure by taking strict action against those who indulge in the act like eve teasing, molesting and ragging, allowing women to fully realize their capacities. Government and society need to work together to ensure that women are encouraged in joining as equal partners in all aspects of the growth of society and the nation, as well as to get justice. There is a gap between de juris and de facto position regarding the right of women. De juris and de facto means, de juris means whatever is there in the law books, and de facto is whatever we face in the practical life. The need of the hour is for speedy implementation of legislative and policy measures for empowerment of women. There is often lack of awareness about schemes for promoting welfare and development among women. This results in women not availing all the benefits. This situation needs to be rectified, and this can only be achieved through an awareness program. We need a brand of gender advocates like young people whose mission is to bring about effective implementation of the policies and programs for women empowerment. Women must also be motivated to fight discrimination. They should work for their own empowerment. It is now time that every individual, particularly those who have the capacity and means, to ask the question, what can I do to make the society a better place to live, to reduce poverty and ignorance, and to give women equal right, respect and dignity. The 21st century world is not a century where women are content to sit back and be content with their fate. women also feel the need to contribute to the national building process. Under Article 14 of the Constitution, there is a doctrine of classification. This basically states that certain classes should be treated in a certain way and certain others should be treated in another way, all the while keeping in mind the larger picture of equality and giving women ample rights to spread their wings. Women had always had rights. Some women tend to highlight their rights by openly participating in the society development, objectively proving that they are empowered, while others tend to prefer at the background, quietly adding their worth in an invisible way to the larger national development. For example, those women who are not working and are indirectly helping national building by sending their children to school and colleges. Now I will explain you the evolution of women right in the Western countries and later on in our country. As a movement, women's right originated in the West on the foundation stone led by great feminist writers like Susan Edwards and others. These were the first generation women right activists, and in the 17th century their primary concern was education and gender equality. Women before the 17th century, even the Western Hemisphere, were denied the basic conception that one associates with the liberal West today. The way we regard women today in the West is not the actual scenario that existed in the West in the 17th century. The manner in which women are liberal today in India, despite their various limitations, the same was the situation in the West. Therefore, the need for women activists who, through their activism in publishing various books, journals, brought a change to a larger extent through their writings. Only women can understand the power they possess in the national building process if they are truly empowered in the true sense of the word. The female author present at that time, both male and female, dealt with the female issues in the society, their rights and the limitation, while the male writers like Charles Dickens portrayed women as being good, kind and helping the mankind. On the other hand, there were women authors like Jane Austen who portrayed women as essentially strong-willed, capable of standing by themselves and fighting for the society at a larger extent. Then came the Industrial Revolution in the West. The push for women empowerment got a major boost when they demanded equal treatment clauses in the same manner as the men alongside whom they were working. That is the concept of equal wages, equal work. In India also, women were treated with respect in the society. From ancient times, the respect for women has been there. Vedic era and the Hindu religion portrayed women as goddess, Kali, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga, Parvati. They were seen as the idea of what was desired in an ideal woman. Then came the era of Lakshmi Bai, who was a powerful woman, well educated and physically fit. The ideal woman was one who was strong, caring, compassionate and firm. The Ramayana depicted women in various attributes, both positive and negative. But throughout, it is the concept of an ideal woman which prevailed. The golden period was found mainly in the Indian civilization era. Thereafter, there was a stage when women lost the respect and control in their own families. There were some social activists who were concerned about the reform movements to help improve the position of women in the society. Two social activists who stand out in this regards were Mahadev Govind Ranade and Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Later on, some other people also joined, who were Sarojini Naidu, Annie Besant and others. Then came a situation in the late 80s when women were forced to die along with their husband. The concept of sati originated in the belief that on the death of the husband, the wife do not have any existence and she has to finish her life in the same fire where the husband is burned. Sati Abolition Act stopped the said concept. Thereafter, there was another misconception, remarriage of widow. In ancient time, when a husband died, the widow was not allowed to marry against because of due circumstances and the family pressure. However, this interpretation was discarded with the social progress and the society witnessed a major change. This practice has eventually stopped and any woman who's a widow can remarry in today's era and there is no taboo on this. The latest concern in our country now these days is dowry death. In India, the practice of giving and receiving dowry can be seen as part and parcel of the Hindu marriage. There are many instances where women are forced to give dowry and then later on after marriage, if the dowry is not found to be sufficient, then the woman is put through many hardships that are uncalled for in the modern society. In modern Indian urban societies, it is expected to give dowry according to the status of the husband. The more educated the husband, the more dowry. The demand for dowry can reach to astonishing demands. There are specific provisions in the Indian Penal Code, Section 304B, and the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, which has been specifically enacted to encounter the evil of dowry. Education is a crucial component for enlightenment of our country. It is only through the means of education that the society can be made aware of the need of women. Your partner or your spouse cannot stop you or your daughter from further studies. The Indian Constitution recognizes the right of primary education for both boy and the girl child. Similarly, you also have a right to earn a livelihood and seek equal wages for equal pay. If you are working as an engineer and your male counterpart is also working as an engineer, there is no reason why a less salary should be given to you. You can always file a complaint before the labor court. If your spouse, parents or your in-laws stop you from pursuing a job for no obvious reasons, then it is violation of your personal right. It can amount to mental and economic abuse and is therefore chargeable as a criminal case. Say no to economic abuse. If you are dependent on your parents, guardians or spouse for money and one of them refuses to help you monetarily, especially in the case of natural emergencies like treatment, then it amounts to economic abuse. That does not mean that you go to your parents and ask for money and spend the money somewhere else. It is a punishable offense under the Domestic Violence Act of 2005. In fact, your husband cannot dispose of your jewelry or dowry assets without your consent because this is your Sridhan. If he does so, he is guilty of economic abuse. In Indian society, cruelty against women, especially wife, is not a new development. The unfortunate part of the domestic violence is that the victim has to, in most of the time, live with the abuser, or he might be her sole means of support, thereby depriving her of any relief that she might have got from the judicial forum. Domestic violence can also include forced intercourse with a wife who might not be in a state to deny the same. Marital rape is yet to be enforced in India, although there are many instances of this happening. Marital rape is internationally recognized as form of domestic violence or sexual violence and yet does not find any protection in India. In this regard, the Parliament has enacted an act called Domestic Violence Act, and some of the reported cases show that the courts are favoring women under this act. According to the Domestic Violence Act of 2005, any act of violence or abuse against a single woman, sister, widow, mother, daughter, or even woman in a live-in relationship amounts to domestic violence. Sexual harassment of women at workplace is a very alarming problem, and it compels females to work in hostile atmosphere where they have to succumb to illegal demands because of fear of losing a job and threat to her life. In this regard, one of the landmark judgments given by the Honorable Supreme Court is popularly known as Vishakha's case. This case is called Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan. The then Chief Justice of India, in very simple language, observed that the incident revealed the hazards to which a working woman may be exposed and the urgency for safeguarding by any alternate mechanism in the absence of legislative measures. Women have the right to be protected at workplace wherever it may be, and it is the duty on the part of the society to ensure the safety of women who are active in profession and are engaged in professional spheres of life. The learned Chief Justice of India also said that each incident of sexual harassment of women at workplace results in violation